that we have seen that the polarization that we saw on the computation was not some sort of accidental thing, let's just see a few other things as to how easy these channels that we create are. It doesn't mean that just because we have good channels, things are easy. What is the actual complexity of encoding and decoding these channels that we created is something that we should worry about. I guess the best do this maybe with an example. I think it will come off yourself. Suppose that we have so this creates the two channels. This input is traveling over the channel W minus. This input is traveling over the channel W plus. If I am to create the channel W minus minus and W minus plus, what I should do is the following thing. I need to obtain two copies of W minus, so I can combine it to create the channels W minus minus and W minus plus. So what I have is now the following. At this point I have two copies of W minus and two copies of W plus. The inputs of these W minuses are there, W pluses are here. And these two are independent copies because these channels have to do with those channels. So if I now do this one, so now I have created, this guy is seeing the channel W minus minus, this guy is seeing channel W minus plus, and then if I do the same thing here, I combine the two copies W plus with each other. So this guy is traveling over the channel W plus plus. This was going over. This guy was seeing W minus minus. This guy was seeing W minus plus. This guy was seeing W plus plus. Oh, sorry. All these ones will be the one, maybe like this. Because I combine these two first, so 1 and 2, and these two next. We also give these guys some names. This one to be 1 and 2. What you see is the following thing. First of all, the encoding operation. If you do polarization for, let's say, k steps of polarization, okay, you will have here 2 to the k lines. In this case, k is equal to 2. Okay. And you have here k stages. So stage 1 and stage 2. In each stage, you have 2 to the k over 2 plus signs. Okay. Other ones are just straight. So the whole operation to compute what you're supposed to feed to the actual raw channel W, okay, the x's that you send over channels, to compute them from the U's, it takes only the effort 2 to the k times k. Okay. So for Blockman, okay.
So what you've just written down on the board is a Walsh-Hadamard matrix.
Indeed it is, yes.
Which has a factorization as a product of k very simple matrices.
Yes, this is in fact just 1101 Kronecker product. ridiculous is, in fact, of course, the Reed-Muller codes also have the same matrix in there. So the polar codes are cousins of the Reed-Muller codes. They only differ in how you choose the indices to sends. As you see, some of these U's are going to be traveling over terribly bad channels. So those U's, you will not carry, they will not be information carrying symbols. We'll set them to be constants ahead of time, which means that in fact you have a sub-matrix of this big matrix as your generator matrix of your code, G. But which rows are chosen are going to be determined by is the mutual information which corresponds to this IW blah blah blah. Is it close to 1 or not? Whereas the Reed-Muller construction will choose it if the Hamming weight of that particular row is high or not. So those two are different things, so they end up generating different codes, but nevertheless, they are actually the Reed-Muller construction chooses with the identical number of plus signs or number of minus signs. That's exactly the weight. 2 to the number of plus signs, or whatever something is the weight of a particular row. So choose it like that. So these two codes are families are very close cousins of each other. Okay. Encoding effort is small, so order n log n is the encoding effort. Now what about decoding? Well, I'm supposed to compute the following things. I'm supposed to compute. Now, I need to decode U1. U1 is traveled over the channel W minus minus. So to decode U1, I'm going to compute the following object. I need to compute W minus minus, whose output alphabet is, whose output symbols are Y1, Y2, Y3, Y4. I'm supposed to compute the listing for both U1 being 0 and U1 being 1. I compute this for both the possible values of the star for 0 and 1, and you compute this. And do this way. Need to compute this for 2 values of the U1 and choose the more likely one. That's the ML decoder for this channel is going to be you compute the output of W minus minus given 0, W minus given 1. Whichever one is larger, you choose you make a decision like that. So how do I compute this quantity? Now, maybe I should also write here one more thing down here. What are the transition probabilities for these two W minus and W plus channels? One. So given U2, okay, U1 can be anything. It can be either 0 or 1 equal probability. Once the U1 is given, you choose the U1. Once the U1 is chosen, inputs to these two channels are fixed. This is the this is the transition probability or the W plus. What about W minus? Well, I'm only given U1. The U2 can be anything. But there's only 2 possible choices. Each value of the U2 is 0 or 1 but equal probability half. Okay. And then so it's chosen. I will take the Y1 and Y2. Like this. So essentially can compute the likelihood function for W minus from the likelihood functions from the constituent W's. So consequently, to compute this, I need the following things. I need to compute the W minus or Y1, Y2, given star. Okay. So the Y1, W minus has the inputs V1 and V2. Another W minus here. If I computed these ones, okay, if somebody somehow computed these, then I can use this formula here. Okay. This thing contains 2 multiplications and 1 sum. Right? Okay. So by doing 2 multiplications and 1 sum, I can compute from these guys this thing that I want to compute here. So this operation of taking these together and doing this one is only 1 sum and 2 products. Okay. Well, how do I compute this? I compute the y1 given x1 star. Okay. So this computation here also takes only only 2 multiplications and 1 sum. Yes, each of these computations at each stage is a constant effort. Good. So we have now figured out this one, right? So now that I've decoded by doing this computational tree, okay, so you obtain your y's. You transform these y's to what is the probability of y1 given 0 and y1 given 1. You obtain these 2 numbers for free. That's just the transform output units. And then from here you just do this computation tree. You end up with 2 values here. If the value for u1 is equal to 0 is bigger, you decide u1 is equal to 0. If u1 is equal to 1 is bigger, you decide u1 is equal to 1. That's it. Okay? Good. Now you decided u1. Now you want to decode U2. For U2, you're supposed to compute W. So U2 is traveling over the channel minus plus. W minus plus of Y1, Y2, Y3, Y4, 1. You need to compute this. But this can be computed already from these 2 things here. To compute the W plus or something in the constituent W's. Okay. So we have the plus or the minus channels in the constituent W minus channel, which are already computed here. So we went through these things, okay. And this takes even less operation. It's no multiplication. Okay. So constant effort to start from these 2 numbers and do it there. So if in the computation tree, when you compute this one, don't forget the previous stuff. Okay, so if you do your computation in this tree, don't erase the stuff that you previously computed once you figure out this stuff there. If you keep the intermediate results when you are trying to compute this 2 values here, then you can use the previous computations to maybe compute this thing here also. Okay? Now you figure out what is the U1 and U2 at this moment. You have decided the values of the U1 and U2. Okay. Good. Now if you know U1 and U2, okay, you know these particular guys here. Okay. So now you compute the, I go back to trying to figure out what is the U3. Okay. So to figure out what is the W plus minus. So really be careful here. I know that as a U1, U2 already. But in fact, so slightly differently for the following reasons. So these are the outputs of the two constituent W plus channels. Remember, channel W plus this thing here is supposed to have the right. Because of this, I have one. So I have this one, I know this one also. Because of this, I know V2, I know V1. So those two already have figured out. And you see, the V1, V2 that I figured out are exactly what is happening when I combine these two W channels together. I create W minus, whose output is Y1, Y2, and W plus, whose output is Y1, Y2, and V1. So I need to compute this. I need the whatever thing it is. Once I figure those two out, I could combine them together by this minus transformation operation to multiplication to compute this. But what about these ones? I can compute them directly from constituent W pluses I already have. Okay. And lastly, I need to compute the W plus plus. And this because I figured out what U3 is, I can compute from the values of these two. So what you see is this, the decoding effort completely mirrors the encoding effort because for each node in this trellis, you only make one computation. You fill up these nodes one by one. Okay? And then you have here also 2 to the k lines and k plus 1 columns. And each intersection node, it requires the constant effort to compute its value from the value we computed before, and never revisits the same node twice. So in this business, once we have figured these two values here to compute these two values here to compute this one is you just don't do it again. You just simply use the last two values. So decoding effort is equal to k plus 1 times 2 to the k times a constant, say, 2 multiplications and 1 addition at most. Okay. So,
would it be accurate to so when I look at that picture, I mean, it looks to me like I mean, it's the same picture when I'm trying to find, when I'm using Walsh-Hadamard functions for the Gaussian channel. I'd make a decoder like this, and I have nodes just like this, and I do a calculation of each node. You're doing a more complicated calculation, but you're combining them in the same way.
The difference is the following thing. So the real Walsh-Hadamard transform and this one aren't exactly compatible.
Yeah.
If you do real Walsh-Hadamard transform, you end up simply doing rotation.
Yes.
So none of the channels that you create are any worse or any better than the one that you started from.
They're anyway.
They're not any worse or any better than the original channel.
Right.
So the fact that this modulo 2 sum is nonlinear with respect to the actual summation makes this whole trick work.
Yes.
So it's a strange thing. If you want to have a theory of polarization which works for the real alphabet, suppose I don't say I start with a channel whose input is already a real value, and you want to do some transformation which ends up doing the same thing there. You can do a number of things. For example, you could say the input alphabet is the interval 0, 1, not just the 0 and 1, but the whole interval between. And your plus sign is the modulo 1 summation. So 0.3 plus 0.8 is 0.1. Yeah, so 1.9 you drop the integer part. And then what happens, again, polarization happens, okay? But in a very strange way. You end up creating very, very high capacity channels. So this is these IWs are no longer bound by 1. So they can grow without bound. Okay? What happens is that almost everything converges to 0. You end up with huge numbers of very bad channels and very few extremely good channels. So the whole capacity is carried by very few symbols, very few channels on which you can send huge numbers of bits. These are aesthetically pleasing, but in fact not easy channels. They end up in a kind of this rational versus irrational stuff. The decoder is confronted for these good channels with a very difficult task to figure out what he's supposed to do. So in a sense, I guess the right way to think about polarization is not that you create very good and very bad channels, but you create very easy channels. So in that sense, this polarization modulo 1 for the real numbers in fact fails to actually polarize it. So it succeeds in the sense of the polarization mutual information, but it fails the easiness test. I'm not sure if this is giving a meaningful answer or not. So this is also, this is the block length n. Again, this is n for n. So this, the polar codes are both simple encoding encoding complexity, and we just proved previously that they in fact achieve capacity. Right? So this is the first instance of codes which have simple encoding, simple decoding, and capacity achieving properties. When I said capacity achieving, I slightly cheated you, by the way. So, well, not much. It's true, but I haven't proved it. What we showed at the end of the first hour was that this number of mediocre channels is small. So all channels are good or all channels are bad. But we proved this thing for a fixed notion of goodness. So what we have is the following. We ended up with with 2 to the n or 2 to the k channels after k stages of polarization. About 2 to the k times w of which have mutual information. Figure out how delta, you fix the delta, and then you take k now, until you have this. Very good. And the rest have mutual information, that's remaining ones. So what we do is the following thing. We only send actual data on these channels, the good channels. Okay. We send, if you wish, isolated coins at the beginning of all time. Okay. I set it to be the U's, which I'm going to send over those channels. But I reveal the result of this experiment, the coin flipping, to both the encoder and the decoder, to be at the design stage. Okay. So those U's carry no information, but they satisfy the fact that all these U's are uniformly random. I guarantee like that. Okay. So what is my error probability at this moment? Okay. So what I have is that each of these channels is good. Okay. But if any one of them makes a mistake, if you're decoding any one of these things, you make a mistake, your errors are going to be propagating. So to have that each of them is good is not really sufficient. Because I have so many of them, okay, they have to be really good. I need to make this delta to be really not the order 1 quantity, but something which goes to 0 also, okay, with the number of channels that I have here. Okay. What I haven't shown you is that one can prove a similar theory by making this delta here, okay, as a function of this k, which also approaches 0. So, which I haven't told you this, but if we had maybe half an hour more than what we had, I could show you that too, but it's not such a crazy thing. Okay. So in fact, what one in fact shows the following thing. Not only is what we prove is to be true, if we choose this delta, okay, so even the following standard theorem, the following fact is also true. So if we showed if your notion of mediocrity or notion of goodness is some fixed value, it is fine. What is true is the following thing. Even if you choose this delta to approach 0, in fact very fast, ridiculously fast approach to 0. Okay. Even this is equal to 0 whenever beta is less than half. So you ask for a delta which decays to 0 in long time. Okay. So if you see that this 2 to the k is the block length of your code. Right. So this is what I have is this is equal to 2 to the minus the block length to the power beta. This is saying that as your notion of mediocrity is like 2 to the minus square root of the block length. Things are still good. Okay. If you ask it to decay faster than 2 to the minus the square root of the block length, then I cannot guarantee anything. In fact, this is normal evolution. You'll not miss. It doesn't happen that fast. And this is more than sufficient to arrest error propagation. So you indeed achieve capacity. All I wanted here was in fact 1 over 2 to the k would have been sufficient. Okay? So this is much more than what we need. Okay. So now So I said that you should choose for the bad channels, for the channels which are bad. We're supposed to flip coins at the beginning of all time to decide what their input is, to ensure that I have indeed uniformly distributed zeros and ones. Now, if your channel is symmetric, if your W is a binary input but it's symmetric channel, then you have to do this. You can simply set those U's to be 0. You can take all the non-data carrying U's to be 0. So that gets rid of the randomness in the construction. Okay? Which makes the following. So these polar codes, they have their capacity chaining. Okay? They have low encoding complexity, low decoding complexity, plus they are explicitly constructed. There's no, here is a family of good codes, okay? One of which is good, but I don't know which one. Okay? Just make choose a random graph with high probability you're going to get some good graph code. Okay? No such thing here. Okay? Here's the code. But what I'm showing you is how to find the good indices, because we said, okay, fine, you're going to find this many good channels, but which ones of them are there? Because we have this tree of channels. Okay? Maybe I should do this thing. Guessing is the following. If you take a look at this tree at some depth here, then I'm going to find a whole bunch of good channels, a whole bunch of bad channels, very few mediocre channels. Fine. Okay. But which ones are the good ones? Okay. So quickly, the top path is better and better. Right? If you follow the top line, keep putting plus signs, I keep increasing the mutual information, so this must be a good channel. And the lower path is clearly bad. Okay. But the thing is that the great majority are the ones which have more or less the same number of plus and minus signs. Okay. Most of these things, the bulk of this collection of 2 to the n k, if I go to level, let's say k, I have 2 to the k channels. Okay. Then you have k choose I of them are going to have I plus signs and k minus I minus signs. And the bulk is exactly at I is equal to k over 2. So most of these channels have gone the zigzag path. Okay. To figure out which ones of these are the good ones and the bad ones is a pain. Can we find this efficiently? Okay. The answer is yes. Or rather,
would you like a lozenge or something?
I took some already.
Okay.
No. Actually, I'm losing an aria at this moment.
Oh dear.
So what is the difficulty? if you take a look at the channels that we create, the channel W, it has binary inputs and some number of outputs, let's say 3. So the output outlet size is 3. The channel W minus, the output outlet size is 3 squared, 9. And this guy is 3 times 3 times 2, is 18. If you go one more step from this, the minus of this channel has 18 squared outputs. Okay. And the plus of that one is 18 squared times 2, which is like 600 something. Okay. The minus of that has the square of 600, okay, which is like 40,000 outputs and so on. Okay. Now, the idea that I'm going to compute the mutual information for all these channels is a crazy idea. Okay. You don't want to go and evaluate the mutual information of all these channels and decide on the basis of that which one is good and bad is a crazy idea, because at level k, you have channels whose output size is like exponential in 2 to the k. So it's like 2 to the 2 to the k is the typical output of all the channels which are at level k here. You don't want to do this. Okay. So you want to sort of keep this thing up at some level. The right way you do this is the following. So one easy fact is the following thing. There are certain operations which commute with the polarization operation. Okay. So one of them is the following. If you take two channels, let's say W and any other name, I reuse V because I used V for combining U's, but V is going to be channel here. Suppose that the U and the V are ordered by degradation, stochastic degradation. Okay. So I take the output of W, I process it, I obtain new output, processed output. This I call the channel V. Okay. If we have this, then the V plus minus is also related with respect to the W plus minus. It's an obvious fact because if I take this one and process the output, okay, then I'm also processing the output of the U1, 2, Y1, Y2 is also processed. It's obvious. So if you take these Y's, you process them. And the Z's, if you call this guy to be W, then the V plus and the W plus is also processed. That isn't sufficient, but let me tell you one more. We don't need the second one, but the following thing. The other thing is the following. You take V to be a BEC and W, but the checker parameter which is less than P. Okay. And then this is also preserved. Okay. The W plus and W minus and the V plus and V minus, they're the same relationship. Because the V plus and V minus remain BECs. We just saw it at the beginning of the last hour. Okay. And it turns out that they are P squared and 1 and 2 minus P squared. And it turns out the W plus and W minus also have the Jerry parameters, which are at most these two things. So this stuff, these things happen. But you don't need this one. Okay. Now, the second fact which I will need, easy to prove actually. If W is any channel, is a binary input channel, then for any delta, small, we find a V which is degraded with respect to W. So I take W, I process the output, I create the V, but not too much. That is, I of V is not too different than that of W. So degraded, but not by too much. And the output cardinality as at most 2 of decimals. Okay. So I can process the output W to create a new channel whose output alphabet is not very big. Okay. And I haven't lost too much mutual information. Okay. This is not difficult to prove. Okay. So all you have to do is the following. You take a look at the age of the x given y is equal to y for original channel W. And then you group together all y's for which these things are within delta of each other. You quantize the space of these things to levels of delta. Okay. And you try to group them such that if 0 is more likely than 1, you group them together within the same delta, and also do it for the y's for which the 1 is more likely than 0. And this gives you the factor 2, because you do 2 groupings. You split the y into 2 parts. The y's for which the p of x is equal to 0 given y is larger than p of x is equal to 1 given 1, and the others. Within each group, you chunk the y's into cases for which these values are within a quantization of delta of each other. It gives you this many different new z's, let's say. And this guarantees this one. If you do it that way, this will be satisfied immediately. So now what we do is the following thing then. You start with channel V, channel W, you polarize it. Okay. This may end up having lots of symbols. Okay. So you replace them with some channel, let me say, to be V1. I degrade this W using this to a V, such that I don't lose too much mutual information. Okay. By doing this, what have I done? I have changed the mutual information, all these things here. So these things are all now changed. And this has now become the V1 plus, okay, V1 minus. I have changed the average mutual information of these guys by delta by doing so. Okay? I've reduced this thing by delta. I've reduced average of this number by delta. I do the same thing here. Okay. By doing so, this whole average at the any level is modified at most by delta. Okay. I'm never going to replace this one. Okay, I say, okay, fine. This I don't like it. Too many output symbols. I just split it by V3. Okay. That's it. Okay. I change this one by V4. Okay. And I replace them by V5. V6. Okay. After going through all these things, okay, when I change the whole column by my new guys, I decrease the mutual information of the last column by at most delta. So through this operation, what I've done is the following thing. Each of these channels are going to become cardinality. Cardinality is now at most this much. Okay. So I can continue to compute the mutual informations for these guys. And what I have lost is that the average mutual information here is change by at most, after doing this by k levels, k plus 1 times delta is the amount that I have lost. But I can now do the following thing. I can choose this delta to be, let's say, 1 over k squared. If I'm going to do this polarization for, let's say, 20 steps, I take my delta to be 1 over 5,000. So then I have lost a small amount of mutual information at the end. This number is like some number like whatever it is. If I, let's say, suppose I choose delta is equal to now that means that I have now changed the mutual information. See, at most 1 over k on the average. The average mutual information here is changed by 1 over k. And the output kernel here is known by 2 times k times k plus 1. Okay. This makes the mutual information computations to be small, to be reasonable to do. And then once I've done that, the good channels, not too many that can become bad. So the number of good channels that I have are still good. Okay. So if I identify the good channels here, okay, they'll still be good for the original channel. Okay. Because these guys all have less mutual information than the original case. Okay. So whatever I call good to be here is I know to be good. Okay. And I cannot have lost too many of the good channels here because the average has decreased by only this 1 over k. So this, you also come up with a, I'm sorry, with this, I'm not sure if it is understandable or not, but this essentially gives you a way to have a computationally efficient procedure to find, to at least come up with a set of known good channels. Every channel identified as being good by this process is guaranteed to be good because I've done it by degradation only. And by doing so, I haven't lost too many good channels. I don't mislabel too many of the good channels to be bad. So I can still achieve capacity by this process. Okay? Right. So I can find almost all the good channels by this process with small computational effort. So the code design problem is also reasonably simple. Okay? Now, if I was feeling courageous, I would have also given you a proof of the polarization happens a lot faster than what we proved at the first thing, but given the state of my voice, I think it is best not to try to attempt this. I beg your forgiveness before that. Maybe some other time, I may try to do so. Well, I think, how are we doing with time, by the way?
We can stop at any time you'd like. We do have half an hour, but we don't have to use that time.
Okay. So maybe I should then have people ask me questions. It might be actually more reasonable to do so.
Probably. Let's segue to that.
This is a little bit like trying to. Your throat is bad, so that may cause some hesitation. So let's try to keep it a little bit short of a session. If you have some burning questions for Professor Telatar, we can take a few. Again, no pressure, but do you think you will be joining in the afternoon session for the? If not, that's also.
I think it should be okay.
So we are also planning on an opportunity for people to interact a little bit with the speakers in the late afternoon, like 4:35 p.m. So there'll also be questions then. Having said that, if people have some questions for Professor Telatar now, we can take them.
You should call me Emre, by the way. Don't apologize my father or my mother with this.
Please go ahead.
Don't be shy. I mean, I can still talk. Sir. Yes, so there are there are results about this. So for the Mac and so on, you can use polar codes. For the broadcast, things are a bit more tricky. You have to go through. So one more step over is alignment. Essentially, you want to create polar codes which are simultaneously good for two channels. It's not so clear from this construction that if you give me two channels of the same capacity, the same mutual information, indices which are good for one will be good for the other is in general false. Okay. But there's this process of what is called the index alignments, okay, which by adding some extra non-polar structures to the code, essentially it makes it to be an impure coding system, which I might like very much, because I think that the beauty of polar codes is the elegance that we have sort of seen here. Once you go and tamper with it, you create stuff which are perhaps more useful but less elegant. So there's maybe a question as to how far one should push this, but it's necessary. Okay, at least I don't know any other way to do so. Once you do that one, then you can use polar codes also for things like the broadcast channel and so on too. But perhaps I can tell you more about this thing in the one-on-one.
Okay. What's happening?
So this construction is rather special in that, like, the input distributions have to be uniform.
Yes.
So it won't work for channels where, like, the sort of optimal choice of input distribution is not uniform. But it has only achieved the so-called symmetric capacity.
Yes.
So, is there any work in the directions of pushing it in that direction?
So there's this thing called the Gallagher trick. Suppose you need to have a binary input channel. Suppose the optimal distribution is instead of 1/2, it is 2/3, 1/3. But it is the following thing. You simply say, I'm going to create a double channel. This channel will take in a ternary alphabet. It'll map 0, 1 to 0 and 2 to 1. Okay. A uniform distribution on this 0 and 2. Okay. Then this new combined channel has the capacity of the channel that you started with. Okay. And the polar construction works, in fact, for any alphabet size as long as it is prime. Okay. You can approximate any line uniform distribution through this method by some reasonable accuracy, and then do polarization on top of that one. That's one possible way to go around this. Again, it is inelegant, I'm afraid, but it is one way to go around.
Rational approximations with prime denominators.
For example, yes. If you don't have prime alphabet sizes, then what happens is the following thing. You end up with polarization, but not to easy channels, but not necessarily the 0 and 1. You can also get 0, 1 and half, for example. Okay. If we have alphabet size of 4, okay. And if we have a port 4 addition, then you end up with channels whose capacity is full capacity, which is 2 bits, equal to 1. Okay. Half of the full capacity, which is 1 bit, okay. or 0. You end up with those kinds of structures.
So then there'll be a non-trivial fraction of those channels with...
But it's hard to estimate which ones are which.
I'm not going to torture you anymore.
So let's cut this short a little bit here. Now lunch isn't ready, but let's do the following. We'll be getting some chairs down here. Maybe if the speakers wouldn't mind just sitting here, we'll just chill for half an hour until food gets ready. And people should feel free to come and talk to the speakers. But perhaps we can give Emre a little bit of a break, maybe just to give his throat some chance to recover by the evening. Yeah. And we'll have more opportunities in the evening. We'll have some more opportunities in the panel discussion tomorrow afternoon. Yeah. But let's thank Emre again. different kind of bravery, but the kind of bravery that involves coming up, doing a whiteboard talk entirely on the fly while doing scripting and so on while having a bad code. That's also a certain type of bravery. And well, for recompense, but the person I fast sharp a pen. So this is deliberately unstructured time with nobody actually talking. People will just be sitting here, and yeah, because I feel like sometimes that's easiest. It will make it easier for people to come up. If you have any questions for Vincent, for Pascal, maybe joining us shortly, for Naveen, and Professor Calderbank hasn't spoken yet, but he's very well known. He's our Shannon Awardee for this year. If people have questions for anyone, feel free to come to the stage. Food isn't ready yet, so it's not as if we can do anything else, right? But yeah, so not together, a little bit of a space, so just in case people want to come wander around and so on. Would you guys mind sitting?
No, I don't mind.
Okay. Let's just think of it as creative sitting and standing and so on.